This is Joan Fernley, your French and Latin diction coach for choirs. And in this video, I will read Illuminare by Elaine Hagenberg. And whether you're singing the whole thing or just one or two movements, you are in the right place. After my introduction, I will highlight a couple of tips for singers and conductors, and then I'll jump right into the readings for each movement. The timestamps are up on the screen, so if you're only doing one or two movements, you can just jump ahead. But do take the time to watch the tips. For each movement, I will read the text twice. The first time will be at a conversational pace, so you get the sense of the phrasing, and the second time will be much slower, word for word, so that you can really hear the pronunciation. And if you want to take a deeper dive into Latin pronunciation, check out my video on Italianate Ecclesiastical Latin, which is the pronunciation style I use in all my tutorials. And on that note, I did reach out to Elaine Hagenberg to let her know that I wanted to do this tutorial and that I would be using this pronunciation style, and her response was positive, and she even gave me permission to use the cover art for my thumbnails and this video. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful to have had that permission. And as always, if you like what I do, like, share, subscribe, comment below. And now let's get started with a couple of tips. My first tip is the rolled R. In Latin, all your R's are rolled on the tip of your tongue. However, for the word gloriae in the first movement, there's no time to give it a proper roll. There's not enough time. So you don't want to overthink this. You just need a quick little flip. And the trick is to bring in a light D instead. So you get gloriae. And this works because for both the rolled R and the D, the tongue starts basically in the same spot. But one more thing to keep in mind, you have to accent the first syllable, gloriae, and not gloriae. Then it sounds like a D and it sounds all wrong. So it's gloriae. So practice this trick and your audience will not know the difference. The singing will be lighter. You'll get rid of a lot of heaviness that can happen when we put the accents in the wrong spot and work too hard. And it can also fix the tempo if the choir is dragging. And all around, it just sounds much more joyful. My second tip is all about the oohs and ahs. Of course, you get this sound everywhere in Latin, but these two sounds are very exposed in the first and second movement of the piece. And of course, not to mention the title of the piece, Illuminare. So in the first movement, you have words that mean light, like lux and lucem. And these sounds are sustained over many bars, so they're very exposed. And the pitfall is that the oo sound in speech is quite restricted and it has a much lower placement. So we might say something like shoes, or whose shoes are those? So the pronunciation is done in a very tight space, but the sung oo needs much more space. And so you can almost think of it as a completely different and brand new vowel sound that will require a bit of a different mindset and a bit more attention. So the oo sound is very rounded with the lips. It's placed quite high and quite forward, but it should still have lots of space on the inside. So imagine you had the beginning of a yawn when your ears start to pop a little. You would round your lips, but imagine that it's your nose that's rounding your lips. I know that sounds a little strange, but if you imagine that over here, that's where you're rounding. Ooh, it lifts your sound, so to speak. So it lifts the placement. So put another way, you can think of yourself as a very surprised owl and just say, whoo! It sounds a little strange if you're not used to doing it, but this is exactly the sound you want. And then you get words like lucem, lux, and illuminare. Now the ah sound is very exposed in the second movement in the word caritas, that is repeated over and over, and the movement is quite slow as well. So what we want is an Italian ah. It's the middle ground ah between the ah and the aw sound. It's simply caritas. Now whether or not you struggle with this vowel depends on your local accent. So if you have a brighter ah and even wider, and you might say something like hallelujah, you'll have to work on rounding that. And the conductor will ask you to do that and maybe even darken the sound a little bit. Now, the problem is that sometimes the pendulum swings a little too far and we get a sound that is too dark, but also a sound that goes back in the throat and there's pressure put down in the throat and you get something like caritas. So it almost sounds like we're swallowing up the vowel. So to fix this and to not fall into the trap of swinging the pendulum too far, you want to get playful and say things like ta-da, and that's the right ah. Or you can go completely over the top, have fun, put on an exaggerated British accent, and do a little sing-songy darling, and that's a good ah as well. So ta-da, darling, you have caritas. Splendor paterne gloriae, de luce lucem proferens, lux lucis et fons luminis, diem dies illuminans. Splendor paterne gloriae, de luce lucem proferens, lux lucis et fons luminis, diem dies illuminans. Caritas abundat in omnia, de imis excellentissima supersidera, atque amantissima in omnia, quia sumo regi osculum pacis dedit. Caritas abundat in omnia, de imis excellentissima super sidera, atque amantissima in omnia, quia sumo regi osculum pacis dedit. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Nox et tenebre et nubila, confusa mundi et turbida, caligo terre scinditur, percussa solis spiculo. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Nox et tenebre et nubila, confusa mundi et turbida, caligo terre scinditur, percussa solis spiculo. This movement combines texts from two sources, and the second one is sung in English. But I'll read it anyway, as membership in our choirs can be quite diverse, and also because sung English is a bit different than spoken English, particularly when it comes to ours. So pay attention to those. I will be reading the English text as I would sing it, not as I would speak it. Ecce iam noctis tenuatur umbra, lux et aurorae rutilans coruscat. Supplices rerum dominum canora voce precemur. Ut reos culpe miseratus omnem, pelat angorem, tribuat salutem, donet et nobis bona sempiterne, munera pacis. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Ecce iam noctis tenuatur umbra, lux et aurorae rutilans coruscat, supplices rerum dominum canora voce precemur. Ut reos culpe miseratus omnem pelat angorem, tribuat salutem, donet et nobis bona sempiterne munera pacis. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Illuminare is qui in tenebris, et in umbra mortis sedent, ad dirigendos pedes nostros in viam pacis. Illuminare is qui in tenebris, et in umbra mortis sedent, ad dirigendos pedes nostros in viam pacis. Well, there you have it, Illuminare by Elaine Hagenberg. Thank you for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment below. Would love to hear about how your rehearsals are going, if you're singing it, if you're conducting it, how your concert went. I, for one, will be performing it with my choir in the spring of 2025, and I think this piece will become a choral favorite. So as always, keep practicing, and I will see you in the next video.